Hey everybody, what's going on? I am Gregg Sussman, joined today by Jim Sannes of FanDuel as we give you one final giraffe prep for the first round of the NFL draft. What's happening, Jim?
I am pumped up, Greg. I am excited to watch this NFL draft go down. It sounds like it'll be pretty unpredictable, which is pretty fun as we're trying to watch things play out. So I am excited. A lot of fantasy implications here, a lot of betting implications since there's so many markets being offered too. So I'm jacked up for this draft and just something to distract us for a bit, but it should be a really good distraction at that. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm just as excited for the draft. And of course, all the rumors leaking out now, the latest one on Monday being that Dave Gettleman and the Giants have looked into Justin Herbert at 4. And hey, we all make fun of Gettleman for never trading down, but this screams like, hey, you want Justin Herbert, you better trade up in front of the Dolphins. But the question is, are the Dolphins going to draft Justin Herbert? Because this entire draft season, they have been attached to Tua Tagovailoa. And all of a sudden over the last week, you've heard Herbert's name. So the question becomes, which quarterback will the Dolphins draft? You know it's going to be one of them at some point. But will it be Tua or will it be Herbert? Or will one of them be gone by the time the Dolphins get up? What say you here, Jim?
Yeah, I think the big question we have about this draft is how much of this talk around Tua Tagovailoa has been smokescreen versus being legitimate talk. It very well could be legitimate. However, the Dolphins have a lot of incentive to lie about their interest around Tua Tagovailoa because if they're trying to trade up with the Lions at number 3 and they say, hey, we don't care if we get Tua or Herbert, that's going to lower the asking cost because it lowers the demand, which means they can trade less to get up to number 3 to get Tua Tagovailoa. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is if the Chargers have interest in Tua Tagovailoa, the Dolphins should be saying, hey, we don't care. Take him. We want Herbert. And that means that the Chargers could stay put at 6. And if the Chargers are content to stay put at 6, that means they're not competing with the Dolphins trade up to 3 to get Tua. So there are a lot of reasons why the Dolphins should be putting out there that they don't really care about Tua Tagovailoa. But I think that this is interesting because we've been talking so much throughout this draft process about how there's less information out there that will help us dictate and decide who is going to go where. But when we hear about teams being out on Tua Tagovailoa, we just accept it because we assume that that's true. But every year we get these smoke screens, we get these distractions, we get this disinformation to try to help lower the cost around certain assets. And the Dolphins, I don't think anybody else in this draft has more incentive to lie than the Miami Dolphins about what they want to do with pick number 5 as it relates to both the Detroit and Los Angeles. So I think I'm going to stick with the evaluation here, and Tua Tagovailoa to me is the much better prospect from a quarterback perspective. So I think Tua goes before Justin Herbert. It's minus 108 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. I have not seen it up until this point where Herbert has bigger juice on him, but he does right now. So I'm going to buy low on Tua Tagovailoa, stick with what we thought initially, that he would be going to Miami and be the number 2 quarterback off the board. I think that happens. And we'll see how things play out Thursday night. But I think I'm going to ride with the evaluation here and say that what we've heard about Tua so far is all just a smokescreen.
For months and months and months, all we heard about was NFL teams tanking for Tua. And then Joe Burrow happened. So Joe Burrow is your no doubt number 1 overall pick. But the team that wanted Tua the most was always the Dolphins. And then he essentially falls into their laps. And now everyone's talking about Justin Herbert. Doesn't really add up. That's why I think Tua going before Justin Herbert and going to the Dolphins, well, that makes all the more sense. Let's talk about the team that has the number 4 overall pick, and that is the New York Giants. I mentioned them a little bit earlier in regards to doing some research on Justin Herbert, but it's commonly thought that they're going to draft one of the offensive linemen whenever they do draft. If Gettleman does trade down for the first time, well, he's probably saying, hey, I'll draft one of the 4 offensive linemen. The question becomes, which one? Now, Tristan Wirfs has been the one that's been most popularly mocked to them, although in recent days, that hasn't been the case. Again, it is smokescreen season. But you're still buying here, Jim, that Tristan Wirfs is the guy. How come?
It's all because of the number here, Greg, because I think that it's kind of down to 2 guys right now. Based on what we've read about Dave Gettleman, it's that he wants either Jedrick Wills or Tristan Wirfs. And I think that if you gave me even odds, I might go Jedrick Wills because the super plugged-in people seem to be indicating that Dave Gettleman wants Jedrick Wills. And we know generally where Dave Gettleman is going to go. It's leaked out pretty often in the past where he's going. We know what they want. So it's probably going to be Jedrick Wills. But we're not getting them at even odds here at FanDuel Sportsbook because Jedrick Wills is plus 110 to be their guy, whereas Tristan Wirfs is plus 300. And I think that's really intriguing. What my recommendation here would be is look around at various books, see what you can get on Jedrick Wills. If you can get him at a longer number than plus 110, I think that he would be my preferred option. But at FanDuel Sportsbook, they have really been aggressive in reacting to what's been out there about Jedrick Wills. It's plus Tristan Wirfs down to plus 300. Wirfs has amazing athleticism. Like we talked a lot about Mekhi Becton's testing profile, but Tristan Wirfs is actually better at the combine than Mekhi Becton. Super well-rounded, super athletic, fits what the Giants want because he can be a day one starter at right tackle, or you can move over to left tackle as well. So I think that Tristan Wirfs is a prospect I want to bet on in general. When he's 3-1 to go to the Giants, I think that's pretty intriguing. So again, look around, see what various books have on Jedrick Wills. If you can get him at a pretty good number that's not as reactive to what we've seen recently, buy into Jedrick Wills. But based on the numbers of FanDuel Sportsbook, I think the number on Tristan Wirfs is just a little bit too long. 3-1, really good odds for a guy who I think is kind of a 50-50 proposition now between him and Jedrick Wills.
This one's funny because just like we linked Tua to the Dolphins for months, I've linked Tristan Wirfs to the Giants for months. And of course, because of the COVID virus, all of a sudden Jedrick Wills makes the most sense because of the Giants coaching staff, who they have hired from Alabama, and the Nick Saban ties, of course, with Joe Judge. And that's why Wills has seemingly moved up the board. But you don't want to discount Andrew Thomas or Mekhi Becton for that reason. But Tristan Wirfs, for a long time, was that guy. And to get him at 3-1, it's a good bet. I think Wills is going to be the pick, but Tristan Wirfs is a fine selection. Let's move on a little bit farther down, and let's go to the Arizona Cardinals, who have also been popularly mocked a offensive lineman. But you don't necessarily think, Jim, that that's the direction they're going to go in. How come?
Yeah, I think the key here for me is just assuming that you don't know everything. And with the Cardinals, I've always agreed. I've always thought they'd be taking an offensive lineman. I thought Wirfs would be a great fit for them because they need a right tackle pretty badly to protect Kyler Murray, but the offensive line last year wasn't all that bad under Cliff Kingsbury's scheme, and that's a good thing. And I think you're kind of just getting insane juice here at plus 225 to draft any defensive player. It's especially true when you look at the way things could play out for them at number 8, because there is a chance that Isaiah Simmons could be on the board there for them there at number 8. That's intriguing. We've all seen analysts who are closely linked to Cliff Kingsbury saying they like Derek Brown. That's another defensive player. Maybe Jeffrey Okudah wants to slip in a little bit. There are 3 premium defensive players who could, in theory, be on the board here for the Arizona Cardinals at pick number 8. If they get that, having already addressed wide receiver with DeAndre Hopkins, I would think they'd be inclined to go with a defensive player. In fact, Peter King today on NBC Sports said he actually had a defensive player mocked to Arizona in Derek Brown. So I think when you have guys like Simmons and like Brown, who could in theory be available at pick number 8, and the Cardinals don't have, just one need. They've got multiple needs they could address in this draft. I think it's a pretty good odds they wind up taking a defensive player. So plus 225 and them taking any defensive player gives you a lot of flexibility, but also just accounts for the fact that we don't actually know as much as we think we do. So I'm going to take this one here, plus 225, a really good number that I want to take advantage of with this Cardinals first pick.
I think it's the number that is most interesting here for the Cardinals to draft a defensive player. Offensive lineman, it is possible, but the more you look at how the draft may shake out and you place in Justin Herbert and you place in Tua Tagovailoa, you're like, along with the offensive lineman, the best players on the board very well may be Isaiah Simmons or Derek Brown, 2 guys that in other drafts, depending on needs, they may have gone in the top 5. Isaiah Simmons, many believe, should still be the Giants pick at number 4. The possibility of them being there at 8, well, it's worth betting on. That's what Jim is recommending that you do. We talk a lot about these offensive linemen: Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills, Andrew Thomas, Mekhi Becton. What order are they going to go in? Who's going to take them? That's the question a lot of people have right now. The Jets, well, they're looking their chops right outside the top 10 that one of these guys fall to them. And the Browns, well, they're right around this mark as well. But Andrew Thomas is a name that some believe is the best offensive lineman in this draft, the one that can start the quickest of any of the offensive linemen in this draft. But the ceiling, well, it may be the lowest as well. You believe Andrew Thomas very well could be a top 10 selection. Where do you see him fitting?
Yeah, this kind of goes along the same thing we just discussed with the Arizona Cardinals, where we should assume we know less than we think we do. And right now, of those top 4 offensive linemen, the guy with the longest odds to go in the top 10 is Andrew Thomas at plus 120. And just kind of from a numbers perspective, there are a lot of teams drafting the top 10 that could need a tackle. You know, the Giants need a tackle. The Dolphins, if they decide to not go quarterback, need a tackle. The Chargers need a tackle if they decide to not go quarterback. Cardinals, Jaguars, Browns. All those teams are drafting in the top 10. So basically what you need out of Andrew Thomas is to just be one of the top 3 or so offensive tackles off the board. And I think for plus 120, again, assuming that we know less than we think we do, that's a pretty intriguing proposition. It's especially true because Andrew Thomas, among those top 4 guys, played more snaps at left tackle than anybody else. The Chargers have a glaring need at left tackle. If they want to put a guy in there right away, I think that Andrew Thomas slots in pretty well. Same thing for the Cleveland Browns, who have right tackle set. They just need a left tackle. And that is Andrew Thomas, the guy with the largest sample size at left tackle in this draft. Bob McGinn of The Athletic also has been polling personnel evaluators about their favorite players at each position. And when he did that for these offensive tackles, it was actually Andrew Thomas who was the guy they put at the top of their list most often. So I don't think that Andrew Thomas will be the first tackle off the board because, again, I think that's down to Wills or Wirfs, depending on whom the Giants prefer. But we don't need to be first. We need to be within those top 3 or so tackles, and I think that there are pretty good odds that happening, especially at plus 120. Thomas seems to be a pretty safe pick who can start at left tackle on day 1. I think teams will value that quite a bit, especially with the specific teams picking in the top 10. So the odds of Thomas going within those top 10 picks, to me, better than plus 120.
He doesn't have to be first. He just has to go inside the top 10. And as you mentioned, Bob McGinn of The Athletic, as he polled all these scouts and general managers, they said that Andrew Thomas is the best offensive lineman on the board, certainly the most NFL ready that could step in at left tackle immediately. Enough teams are always desperate for a left tackle. The question is, if the Dolphins, if they draft Tua Tagovailoa, they really need a right tackle. So I don't know. We'll see with Andrew Thomas there. But Andrew Thomas definitely has a shot. And as the lowest of all these guys at plus 120, I think it's worth taking a shot here on draft day. Let's move on, Jim, and let's get to the wide receivers, where we've talked a lot about CeeDee Lamb and Henry Ruggs and, of course, Jerry Jeudy. The question is, where do these guys all go? Much like the offensive linemen, the wide receivers are kind of all mashed together here without a clear-cut number 1 choice. But you're betting on Jerry Jeudy one way or another.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the negative side here for Jerry Jeudy. I think that he'll go after pick number 12 because we're getting plus 120 juice on this. And that's pretty intriguing because I think the 12 is intentional on FanDuel Sportsbook's part because that's where the Oakland Raiders are selecting. So basically the question is, will Jerry Jeudy go to the Oakland Raiders? Because I think the Jets have to go offensive line. And so you're kind of seeing who's going to slot into the Raiders. And Peter King, as mentioned, released his mock draft this morning. He's a pretty plugged-in guy, a lot of connections around the league. And he said that Mike Mayock was in love with CeeDee Lamb. And I think we could see other teams also in love with CeeDee Lamb or potentially in love with the speed of Henry Ruggs III. That could allow Jeudy to slip a bit. I'm not saying slip a lot. He could very well go to pick number 13 to the 49ers. And I would not be shocked at all if that were to happen. But with the total here being at 12.5 and plus 120 on the over, I just think it's an advantageous number. So I want to lock in here on Jerry Jeudy. I think he is a very talented prospect, but I just think, again, kind of similar to the line of thinking with Andrew Thomas, it's a numbers game. And I think that the numbers don't line up for a good number of wide receivers to go within those first 12 picks. And I think that when you look at the specific players who could go there, I think it lends itself to the over here on Jerry Jeudy. Again, I think that there are good odds he goes right at number 13, so not expecting to fall far beyond 12. But I do think that with plus 120 on the over here, Jerry Jeudy could slip just a bit and get us some good juice on this number.
Just because the wide receivers don't really line up inside that top 11, it makes that number 12 pick for the Oakland Raiders all that more interesting. But the question is, will Jerry Jeudy be the guy? The odds are probably not. We'll see if Peter King is right. We'll see if the wide receivers fall a little bit. We don't need them to fall much. Specifically, we only need one to fall in this bet, and that's Jerry Jeudy over pick 12. One final topic to get to, and that's the running backs here, Jim. We talked last week about Jonathan Taylor and where he should go and if he'll be one of the first running backs off the board. But we didn't necessarily describe what round that would be in. And if you're going to draft a running back, it does seem like it's going to be at the end of the first round at best. You're taking the opportunity that there's not going to be any running backs drafted in the first round at all. So essentially, you're buying the Chiefs, not drafting a running back.
I'm also buying the Chiefs potentially not drafting at all in the first round. I think that that's pretty intriguing here because you're getting plus 150 on the under at a half. And the Chiefs are picking at number 32. the Chiefs' big issue in this draft is they don't have a lot of picks. They have 5 total draft picks in this draft. And I think that you're looking at these teams that want to trade up to get a quarterback and get that 5th-year option. I think that the Seattle Seahawks and the Kansas City Chiefs are 2 prime spots where teams could trade up. Which are 2 of the teams with the potential biggest need at running back at the end of the first round? It's the Seahawks and the Chiefs, because the Seahawks have injuries to Rashad Penny and Chris Carson. They've been linked to some running backs. The Dolphins have been linked to some running backs, and the Chiefs. So those are the 3 teams. But I think the Seahawks and Chiefs probably trading out to give other teams whacks at positions that need that 5th-year option. Running back is not one of those positions where you need that 5th-year option. So I think if teams are trading up, it will not be to get a running back. It'll be to get a different position, and that could allow the Seahawks and the Chiefs to address that need later on in the draft. As far as the Dolphins go, pick 26, they have been linked to DeAndre Swift quite a bit, and I think that is certainly a risk here if you want to bet the under at a half of a running back. However, the Dolphins seem to be a pretty analytically run organization, and they're probably not going to go with a running back if that winds up actually being the case. They also could address running back early in the 2nd round, where they have a couple of picks there as well. So I kind of think it's just a numbers game where there aren't a lot of teams that need running backs. And of those teams that do need running backs, they can either A, address it early in the 2nd round, or B, trade out of that 1st-round pick and get it later on. So I like DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor. I think they're both really interesting. But I think given the way things shake out here, I would not be shocked to see those teams that could be entertaining the idea of drafting those guys, trading back into the 2nd round, getting them there, and allowing this under hit at plus 150.
Plus 150 is a really good number because there's no guarantee by any means that Swift or Taylor or any other running back goes in the 1st round. The Chiefs, like I said, the most obvious target, but they need more picks. Just like with the 49ers and the Raiders, these teams need more picks as well when it comes to the wide receivers. The Dolphins, as an analytical team, they're really spending a 1st-round draft pick on a running back. They've traded all their good running backs, Damian Williams and Kenyon Drake. They don't really think the position matters, and that means they're not taking him in the 1st round. I really like this bet at plus 150. That's going to do it for us here on the FanDuel Hurry Up. Jim, it has been a blast talking draft with you. It's showtime, man.
Yeah, finally, we get to actually see how things play out. Finally get to know the answers about Tua, the answers about all these wide receivers, a lot of fantasy implications, which I am sure we'll break down in the coming weeks here on the Hurry Up. I am looking forward to that, Greg, and looking forward to talking to you again soon. Enjoy the draft.
Absolutely, you as well. Final question. Is there a prop over on the FanDuel Sportsbook about Gettleman having a technological failure on Thursday?
It is minus 400. Get it while it's hot because you're not going to get that number for long. So if you want to get it, hammer it right now, Greg.
Just making sure, Jim. For Jim Sanas, I am Gregg Sussman. Enjoy the draft, everybody. We'll see you next time right here on the FanDuel Hurry Up. Stay safe, everybody.